The night was cold, and the city lights flickered like distant stars over the cracked sidewalks of Los Angeles, where a young boy named Ethan sat outside a small diner, clutching an old, scratched guitar as if it were his last possession in the world. He was barely 16, thin as a shadow, his clothes faded from wear, but his eyes, those deep, soulful eyes, held a strange kind of fire that refused to die. He played softly beneath the buzzing neon sign, his voice trembling but pure, his fingers tracing melodies that whispered stories of pain and hope all at once. Most people passed by without looking, lost in their own hurried worlds, until a soft-spoken waitress named Maria paused at the door, her tray still in hand, and listened. The moment she heard the faint tune of Hotel California, her breath caught. His version was unlike any she'd ever heard. It was raw, haunting, and full of something that no studio microphone could ever capture, truth. She offered him a cup of hot cocoa and asked his name, and when he looked up with shy gratitude and said, "Ethan," she noticed the small tremor in his hands, the kind that spoke not just of cold but of hunger, fear, and the exhaustion of someone who had been invisible too long. Ethan told her, quietly, that he had come from a small desert town, that his mother had passed away 2 years ago, and that music was the only thing he had left of her. She used to sing Hotel California to him every night before she fell sick, and now every chord he played was a way to keep her memory alive. Maria listened with tears in her eyes and made a promise in her heart: this boy deserved to be heard by the world. The next night, Maria convinced her manager to let Ethan play a short set at the diner's open mic evening. She found him still outside, playing for spare change, and told him the news. He hesitated, terrified that no one would care, but her words were gentle and certain: "You never know who's listening, Ethan." That Friday night, under flickering yellow lights and the chatter of clinking cups, Ethan stepped onto a tiny stage made of crates and hope. His knees shook, and for a moment, he almost turned away, but then he remembered his mother's voice, soft and steady: "Sing like no one's watching, my boy. The world listens when the heart speaks true." The guitar string was slightly out of tune, his voice cracked on the first note, and people turned to look, not out of mockery but because something about that trembling voice drew them in. As he sang Hotel California, the diner grew silent. The sizzling of the kitchen faded, forks froze midair, and Maria felt her chest tighten as the boy's voice filled the room, fragile yet powerful, like sunlight through a broken window. He didn't just sing the words, he lived them. Each lyric felt like a cry from somewhere deep inside, each note carrying years of loss and longing. And when he reached the final line, his voice softened into a whisper that lingered long after the last chord faded. For a moment, nobody clapped, they couldn't. They were breathless. Then, suddenly, the room erupted in applause that seemed to shake the walls. Maria cried openly, and even the gruff cook in the back wiped his eyes. Ethan looked overwhelmed, bowing awkwardly, unsure how to handle kindness when life had given him so little of it. Among the audience that night was a man in his 50s, quiet and sharply dressed, who sat in the corner nursing a cup of coffee. He was a music producer, Alan Rivera, known for discovering unique voices that carried stories, not just sound. After the crowd dispersed, he approached Ethan and asked, "Who taught you to sing like that?" Ethan, surprised, answered simply, "My mom. She used to tell me that singing could heal the heart." Alan nodded slowly, deeply moved. He handed Ethan his business card and said, "You've got something rare, kid. Come to my studio tomorrow. Let's record that song." Ethan froze, disbelief flooding his face. He'd slept under bridges, played for pennies, been ignored by thousands, but here was someone offering him a chance to dream again. That night, Maria gave him a small booth at the diner to sleep in, covering him with a warm blanket, whispering, "Tomorrow's your day, Ethan. Don't be afraid to shine." The next morning, he woke early, washed his face in the diner sink, and looked in the mirror, seeing not a poor boy but a fighter. When he arrived at the studio, his heart pounded as Alan's team welcomed him kindly. They placed headphones over his ears, adjusted the microphone, and said, "Whenever you're ready." Ethan closed his eyes, imagined his mother sitting beside him, and began to play Hotel California. This time, it wasn't just a song, it was a story, a prayer, a farewell, and a promise all at once. Every note carried his soul, and by the time he finished, the studio was silent. One of the engineers whispered, that wasn't just music. That was magic. Alan released the recording on social media that same night, titled simply Poor Boys Hotel California. Within hours, the world listened. The video spread like wildfire, millions of views, thousands of comments, people from across continents writing about how that voice had touched something deep inside them. Strangers donated, shared, cried. Some said it reminded them of their parents, others said it helped them believe in hope again. Ethan had no idea what was happening until Maria rushed into the diner the next morning, phone shaking in her hand, tears running down her cheeks. "Ethan! You're viral. People love you." He stared at the screen, watching his own face sing on a million devices, his eyes wide with disbelief. Calls came from talk shows, record labels, charities. But Ethan remained the same, humble, grateful, quiet. When one interview asked him how it felt to become famous overnight, he said softly, "I just wanted my mom to hear me one more time. Maybe now she can." That line broke the internet. The world didn't just see a talented singer, they saw a boy whose heart refused to give up, even when life gave him every reason to. As opportunities poured in, Ethan was invited to perform live on a major TV show, the same stage where legends once stood. Maria, sitting in the audience, clasped her hands tightly as he walked onstage, his old guitar still in hand. When the music began, a hush fell over the crowd. The judges leaned forward, curious, and as soon as his voice filled the air, the entire room stilled. The lyrics danced with emotion, and by the time he reached the final verse, something extraordinary happened. The audience rose to their feet in the middle of the song, tears streaming down their faces, as if they were witnessing something divine. When he finished, there was silence, then an eruption of applause so thunderous that even the cameras shook. One judge whispered, "That boy didn't just sing. He healed us." And in that moment, Ethan realized something profound. His mother's words had come true. His voice, born from pain, had become a bridge to people's hearts. But the story didn't end with fame. Ethan used the money from his first recording to fund free music lessons for children in shelters, believing that every kid with a voice deserved a chance to be heard. He visited hospitals, playing guitar for patients who couldn't leave their beds, and each time he sang, he saw the same thing, the quiet miracle of human connection. The song that once belonged only to his mother had become a light for thousands. One evening, after performing at a charity event, a little girl approached him and said, "My mom died too. But when I hear you sing, I feel like she's here." Ethan knelt down, handed her his pick, and said softly, "Then keep singing. She's listening." He walked away with tears in his eyes, realizing that kindness, like music, never truly dies, it echoes. Years later, when Ethan stood on the stage of the Grammy Awards, holding his first trophy for Best Vocal Performance, he didn't talk about success or charts. He thanked his mother, Maria, and Alan, the people who saw light in his darkness. He said, "I was just a poor boy singing on the street. But the world didn't change when I became famous. It changed when someone stopped to listen." The audience rose to their feet again, just like they had in that little diner years ago. Ethan looked up at the ceiling, as if speaking to the stars, whispering, "This one's for you, Mom." And as the orchestra softly played the opening chords of Hotel California, he smiled through tears, knowing that his journey wasn't about reaching fame, it was about finding family in the kindness of strangers, about turning sorrow into song, and reminding the world that even the smallest voice, when filled with love, can leave the audience breathless.